was like, you know what, I think you need to think deeply. Either you quit your job or you quit the PhD. What? Like, so it was a bummer. They did not accept it. I spent the whole of December working on this thing, submitted in January, got rejected in February. It's so sad. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Primrose ZJB. I post content about academics, career, adulting, and adventure. Today's topic is cross-cutting academics, career, as well as a bit of some adulting, because I'm sharing a sub story about challenges that I've faced as a researcher, and I will take responsibility for what I should have done, but also note issues that came about because certain people didn't take responsibilities that they had to take seriously. And I hope this is one that resonates with some of you, that this is one that is teaching moment for some of you, and that this is one that will help some of you to avoid the challenges that I have encountered personally. So the first one that I have here is minimal supervision and getting all bad reviews. So having been a researcher since about 2017, I was used to a method of working whereby the people that supervised me were in close contact with me. We had open relationships. We would speak about the research that we're doing, how I'm writing or how they're writing, if we're collaborating, and things always moved smoothly. After my PhD, I started a postdoctoral research fellowship, and I was supposed to do research on politics in Africa. However, usually when people hunt you down for a postdoc, they look at the research you did for your PhD. My PhD research was on post-election conflicts. So those who took me in preferred me to do research on post-election conflicts. And even though I was now doing post-election conflict research on different contexts than the one that I had done in my PhD, I think they just trusted that, this is an electoral conflict expert, which was okay for me, right? So I was expected to submit papers, I think, on a monthly basis, which I did. I like sticking to deadlines. So I think over a period of like 4 to 6 months, I was writing and submitting papers and getting acknowledgements of receipt. These were called working papers. So basically what I had to do was submit working papers. They would be reviewed. They would get published after I make corrections. And then some of them I would work on making them journal pieces. So all of these papers I was submitting, they were getting stuck in like the review process of a working paper. Basically meaning that I was not getting any feedback. So because I kept writing and submitting, it means I was not growing in terms of, I didn't know where I was at in terms of meeting their standards or their expectations. And then boom, after like 6 months, I get feedback on all my submissions, and they were just not happy with them, and they were not happy with the format, they were not happy with the way that I had, looked at the questions and whatnot. So foremost, I lacked guidance, right? I had very few instructions. And then I also didn't probe further because I thought I was an expert. They also didn't check my monthly submissions on a monthly basis because they thought, she's an expert, good enough. And so when they then checked, everything was written in a similar format. And of course, that meant that it didn't make the cut. So I was so disappointed because obviously, in as much as you're a research fellow, yes, you are stuck to the people that are giving you money for the year, but you have your own schedule of what you want to do and to grow your career, and also as a human being just to rest. Now, if someone is only going to give you feedback on 6 months worth of work and expect you to do corrections in like 3 months, how is that even possible? So I was stuck and I was struggling, and I was just like, you know what? This feedback is too much, and I don't even know if I'm able to deliver corrections within like even 3 months. And so I realized, number one, that I lacked guidance, that also I should have maybe asked for the monthly feedback. Like if someone doesn't give you feedback and they just acknowledge acceptance of your document, try and be like, okay, I see that you've acknowledged receipt, but like, what did you think about the paper? Now you might be wondering, like, didn't I run my ideas across them and whatnot? I actually did. So before writing every paper, I had to present my ideas, or rather my proposal, sit on a table, get criticism, and fit in like all those changes after the conversations. And these conversations involved about like, let's say 6 to like 15 panelists. Rather, let me just say 3 panelists and like an audience. So I came to realize later that I speak better than I write. I used to think it was the other way around. So as we discuss things verbally and I'm taking notes, we get each other. Or I get them also. I feel like I speak better than I write. So what I told them I understood, and when I was translating it to paper, when I wrote it, it was like the quality may be depreciated. And then also, I work better with written feedback as opposed to oral feedback. So these people were giving me feedback verbally, right? Speaking or taking notes. But then I think it makes sense when someone is commenting on your proposal on sections and giving feedback to you in that format. So the feedback format didn't work for me, and also my proposal format didn't work for me. Ideally, I should have presented my proposal in written format. I should have known, right? And also, they could have told me that I could, but I don't think there was space for that because most of these academics are super busy and they don't read. They don't like reading document after document. They just like reading like final drafts. And why I moved into that culture and embraced it is because I was actually coming out of a supervision space where, for the most part, I'll just get told, write your chapters and bring them when they are like a bulk. So I just thought that's how things work in academia. But in hindsight, no ways. So I've made the corrections. Nowadays, if I've got something to write, I write section by section, send it through and ask for comments. And of course, I'm now with like a new supervisor who works that way. And when we do have conversations and I am asked to report to capture concepts like, verbally and whatnot, I do that, but I follow up in writing because I don't want to fall into a trap where I now have to do like corrections for 6 months worth of work in 3 months. And that is like impossible. Okay, so that was sob story number 1. Issues around minimal supervision, bad reviews, and also not understanding each other's work styles. The second one is a co-author pulled out. So a co-author is someone you write an article with, you submit it to a journal, you submit it as a book chapter. And what had happened is we worked together for almost a year, back and forth. They correct the document, they send it to me, they tell me what to add because they are more senior to me. I add. We have conversations, they tell me what to add, and things go well. Now, when I tell them where I'm at verbally, they're like, yes, 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 yes. Remember again, I said, I speak better than I write. And I was still not realizing it because these events happen concurrently. And so I do a presentation to them. They're like, yeah, we're getting there. I write, I add on the points that I spoke in writing, right? And then they send me a response. They're just like, I want to pull out of co-authoring this paper. I'm not happy with where it's at. And this was after the paper had actually been submitted, had been reviewed, and we spoke about the review and I had effected the changes that were required of the review. But they just didn't want to be associated with this piece of paper. So we both had to pull out. The submission could not go through because I couldn't make it single author with content that they had contributed, for example. So I lost out. But I think probably these are things that happen. I just never had a fallout, and I think I thought of myself so highly as a researcher. I just thought like no one can ever reject me. But of course, I've been rejected by journal publications. I just never assumed like someone could pull out of our working relationships as researchers. Yes. And then, so what I've been thinking about is, how do I rewrite this paper as a solo author and submit it in such a way that they don't come back one day and they're like, isn't this the paper we worked on together? So I literally just shelved it and I'm probably going to get back to it some other time. Now, number 3. Oh, goodness. Presentation sabotage. So the first instance was when I was doing my undergraduate studies, and it was a public administration course, if I remember well, and we had to do group presentations. You know what? If you're going to do group presentations, please always go first. go first and stick to the time allotted to you. So I always let other people go first, second, and maybe I'll go third or fourth. And then this one girl just started speaking and she took almost all our time. We were like waving at her, signaling, asking the moderator to ask our teammates to stop talking. And she was just like, no, this is my degree. I'm going to keep on talking until I'm done, until I exhaust the items I've got on my list. And so we had minimal speaking time. We lost the chance to make our presentations. We lost the chance to show what we knew. We lost the chance to present our ideas, our opinions, our critique, and like all content that would have given me a better mark. And at the end of the day, the moderator was just like, well, as a team, you should have discussed this, you should have rehearsed, you should have known. When in actual fact, we had met, we had rehearsed, but all of a sudden on presentation day, this person had something else to do. Now, okay, as a student, I now knew that you present first if you're in a group. So fast forward, when I was now in my senior years of undergraduate studies, I always presented first and then used my time properly. I didn't, overflow. And then I realized that sometimes when you present before people and the people are underprepared or the preparation was fuzzy, they end up saying, oh, as Primrose said, as Primrose said, as Primrose said, borrowing from your points, which in hindsight, I actually don't have a problem with because to some extent, it will make it seem to the people you're presenting to that you worked as a team, but to some extent, it just reflects on them not doing much of their work. I'm a postdoc. I'm supposed to make a presentation alongside a senior academic. In many ways, seniority often, I think, takes precedence. I have co-presented with a senior academic and I've presented first, but in this instance, I was just going to present second. Did they not exceed their time? Did they not continue speaking? And then when it was my time, I was told by the facilitator that because my co-speaker had spoken a lot, I only had 3 minutes. 3 minutes to trim down stuff I had wanted to say in 10 minutes. Number one, I was already sweating and panicking because my time was taken. Number two, I did not have a plan B. I did not plan to present my stuff in like less than half the time. So I was just there speaking, looking at my points, speaking, looking at my points, speaking, not being well coordinated, trying to trim things down that I can't trim down, trying to trim examples that I can't trim down, trying to connect with what the previous speakers said, trying to make a conclusion to the presentation. And you know what? I just did so badly. And what I hated the most was when I did this presentation, I was supposed to be showcasing myself, my work, and my intellect to an institution that could potentially take me on in the future. I was hurt. What could I have done? You know what? Every other time I'm supposed to present, I'll just be like, can I go first? And then stick to time. Then if my co-presenter wants to exceed, then that's it. I think that's going to be my mantra moving forward until I am very sure that I've got a partner that is not going to sabotage me at the speaking stage. I'm still traumatized still today. And then number 4, sluggish co-authors. So this also happens when you are working with senior academics. I feel like the title of this video should have been a rant about senior academics, but it's not. So I've co-authored with some people and I realized that I usually have the research content, what people often call like the empirical evidence, because I'm a young researcher and I had written theses and I want to turn these into like journal articles, book chapters, and what have you. And generally, as an academic, I don't know, I never liked being overly theoretical. Even when I do my research, I try to focus more on the empirical side of things, like the research evidence. Of course, I have to link it back to existing theories, but I try not to be overly theoretical. And I like my research to be relatable when people read it and whatnot and whatnot. So I often lean on senior academics because of their theoretical rigor, because of their familiarity with theory, because of their years of experience just writing theoretical sections on papers and chapters. But the issue is most of the time, because for them, like they've reached the pinnacle, perhaps they're professors, right? Of course, writing is important. Writing with you is important, but it's not even like top on their list more often than not, that is. So you can write, send your stuff to them. It's parked in their mailbox for a month. Sometimes you set timelines, you speak to them about them, but then they just literally just do things the way they want to. It's crazy. You knock on their doors, you send them WhatsApps, you get blue ticks, you send them emails, and they just like respond when they want to, or they tell you one day, like a month later, that they didn't see that email. And then now you're like, but you need to add your section. The paper is required for submission on X, Y, and Z date. And another thing I found is that sometimes these academics, they're so used to getting extra time because they've established rapport already with like the publishers, or because of their big name, they know the publishers can wait on them. But I'm just Primrose. Of course, I'm doctor, but I'm new to this game. Like, I can't just be like, hey, my paper's going to be a month late. Please forgive me. Can you give me 60 days more or whatnot? But senior academics can do that. So, in as much as I'm very time conscious and I do my stuff ahead of time, sluggish people throw me backwards. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. So what I'm doing more now is to try to write by myself and be a solo author. But I appreciate writing with them because once they give you feedback, trust me, they are very thorough, they are experienced, they know this stuff. Once they link your main body to their theoretical sections, the paper just goes from like a 90 to like, I don't know, 100+%. Like, they are good. So it's good to work with them, but now I just have to be more patient, but also find ways of pushing and talking to them. And when I give them timelines or deadlines, I have to like give them the wrong dates, I think, because I've been honest for far too long. So I think I'm rethinking my strategy around co-authors. I would rather work that way so that we still work within the allotted time frame from publishers and whatnot. I must say, I've never had an article being rejected by a publisher because we did our things late. They did understand. So maybe the academics were trying to teach me to slow down sometimes and take my time. What I just hate is that I don't like it when people don't live on their promises. I do understand that things happen and like schedules are much more busier for them, but it would be nice to work better. Okay, done ranting on that. Now, my next point is on my PhD. So, I know from everything that I say, it seems like I've always had a smooth journey with my academics. And the supervisor that I had for my master's is the same supervisor that I then had for my PhD, which is amazing because we always had a good working relationship. Now, the difference was when I did my master's, I was a full-time student. And when I started my PhD, I was working full-time. And to be quite honest, my PhD was not the main priority. I was trying to make it, I was on a 1-year probation at work, and the job was linked to like the bigger scheme of things, like my dream career. In as much as my PhD contributed to that as well, it was not like the main thing. So I was a bit sluggish in that regard. And I decided to register full time because I got funding for full time studies. But remember, like I said, I was working full time. So I think, I don't know, the university system knows that students can register as full time, yet they are part time, like in reality. So my supervisor was getting a big push, like, where are your full-time students? We don't see them on campus. Why haven't they presented this, and that? What have they submitted so far and whatnot? And like, for him to say this person is far, like, I think about 2,500 kilometers away from Cape Town. And she is submitting, but the stuff she submitted to me needs further corrections and whatnot. He was just like to me, you know what? You are struggling. I know you. I know your academic excellence. At this point, the content you're submitting to me, you are writing like a person who works in, like, I don't want to give the name. Let's just say he said you're writing as a non-academic researcher in terms of, because I was in diplomacy, I had adopted this writing style that was very careful, this writing style that was also quite very patriotic because, when you're doing foreign policy, you're representing a nation's interests and also you're representing a particular regional bloc's interests and all of that. But PhD, academics, and politics, you can't be like that. You need to identify multiple angles to an issue. You need to identify multiple perspectives. You need to incorporate theories. You need to incorporate multiple concepts and all of that. And I did not have that rigor because when I got home to do my academic work, I was still wearing my diplomatic cap, diplomatic specs, my diplomatic everything. Mine, it never came up. And I didn't realize it, right? Because it just happened. And so he was like, you know what, I think you need to think deeply. Either you quit your job or you quit the PhD. And I was like, what? Like, so he wasn't saying that I failed as a PhD, but he realized where the problem or challenge was coming from, which I had not been able to identify. So I wish I had known better that it wasn't going to be easy, that just because you're working in a field where you're doing foreign policy work and you want to do a PhD that incorporates foreign policy analysis doesn't mean that you have to adopt similar approaches to your work. And also, I just never checked in with myself, right? So fortunately, he was someone who read the stuff I submitted to him in time. I didn't submit things continuously without him checking them and sending me feedback. So station time says 9, they say. So yeah, I decided, you know what? I was like, give me one more chance. I'm going to refine my proposal, present it. If my proposal passes, I'm quitting my job for PhD. If my proposal fails, I am quitting PhD and continuing with work. So as you might have guessed, my presentation passed, my proposal rather passed, and I decided to quit my job, pursue the PhD. My next point is on instant rejection. I've written articles, submitted them, and gotten rejections like within a time frame of like a month. And the main reason was another thing, style of writing. So I have done research on migration management, and I decided I was going to submit my work to a journal that focuses on migration and whatnot. And then they sent it back to me, and then they were like, you know what, we think that this belongs in a journal, maybe of political studies or foreign policy analysis, not here, in as much as you're looking at migration, right? So after some months of reflection, now I realize, you know what, yeah, actually this makes sense because I took a migration topic, framed it for an international relations dissertation because I did my master's in international relations. So now when I was trying to translate that into a journal article, I forgot the hard work I put in to make it very political. So in me submitting it to a migration studies related journal, this was very much like not their type of format. They say you should always check the types of articles that are in a journal to see if the way you have written or your focus or the theoretical approaches you've adopted in line with that standard. But you know what? I just thought I had an amazing topic. I was like, I'm submitting it, it's going to get accepted. And of course, it was a bummer. They did not accept it. I spent the whole of December working on this thing, submitted in January, got rejected in February. So sad. Okay. Now I'm moving on to my second last point. Whew. Being a researcher and money. So you know what? I believe that people should get paid once they submit a piece of work, if the piece of work is money related. Of course, right now I actually have like content I've written and I'm yet to get paid, but it's already published. And now I know that I need to be more strict in saying, you know what, I haven't gotten paid, please pay me, even if it's like me being a nuisance. However, when you're an early career researcher, you also don't want to bother people to the extent that next time they think of a researcher, they don't think of you. I have a real life lesson. So I was once taken in or on, rather, I don't know, as a replacement analyst, political analyst for the think tank. Things were working well. I was writing my monthly publications. They loved my work. They were paying me monthly in the beginning. And then they were like, can we pay you every 3 months? We're an international organization. It's expensive for us to pay you monthly. So to reduce our bank charges, can we pay you for 3 reports like after every 3 months? And I was like, no, I can't do that. The money that I was getting from that gig, I was using it for something that was a necessity. So obviously I couldn't. Like I was being genuine about it. It's not even like I was being inconsiderate. So the first time they're like, okay, we'll pay you. Can we do 2 months? I was like, okay, fine. And the next time I was like, you know what, guys, I can't do this 2 month thing. The next month came, they didn't ask me to write a report. The other month came, they didn't ask me to write a report. The other month came, they didn't ask me to write a report. Long story short, I think I got fired without realizing that I got fired. We never communicated with each other about what happened. I just realized that, you know what, I've been elbowed out. In hindsight, of course, I should have asked questions around, but like, why aren't you asking me to work anymore? But I didn't understand that within the confines of my contract, I wasn't a person that they were going to take on for too long. They were just waiting for the person that was replacing to finish what they were doing. So maybe the person came back and that was it. But to be quite honest, there was bad communication on both our ends. This is something that happened about 4 years ago. Obviously, I would do things better if I ever got into a similar situation now. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of speaking about the challenges I faced, the negative stories I've encountered in research. But you know what? I want to let you know that I've had the best experiences in terms of I've had, I think, 95% of the time, amazing supervisors that gave me the confidence to write, that were willing to look at um, multiple drafts that I had. Sometimes I sent corrections, I felt demoralized, but they were like, no, this means that the paper is going and is moving towards publication status. And then things happen, things work out, you know. And I've had supportive editors when I've submitted book chapter drafts. Sometimes they were able to rectify certain issues, especially in writing, and being given further deadlines when I had challenges with cooperating, for example, like I said, with co-authors. And as much as I've been dropped by a co-author, for the most part, that has not been like the broader experience. And I have a lovely recent highlight where I got like an amazing comment in the submission. They were just like, we're taking it in and they don't need me to do any corrections. They say this is like by far the best article they've ever received on that particular topic. And so I'm going to share the article when it's out. So amazing things do happen in academia. It's just that sometimes as a researcher, things just go wrong. And I've learned my lessons. And I think that in as much as I'm a person who likes avoiding challenges, what is life without challenges? New problems arise every time, and as new problems arise, I'm going to be more open to learning from those instances and also not sulking, because I tend to be angry for such a long time, angry at myself and thinking I am useless, thinking I'm a failure, thinking I'm not going to make it. This is a publish or perish world, which means I'm perishing. I'm not excelling in publishing. Thank you for watching this one. Bye.